Just a second. Instagram is there too. So you're ready. Not go over? Did not get anything? The microphone is on.
Good evening, all. We're going to just give others a couple of minutes to join us. Thank you for taking your time out to be with us so that we can hear from the young people of Barbados what they want to see happen in order to cure the very obvious ill that we have with crime in this country. As we have the conversation with young people, we don't just want to limit it to a particular type of crime. We're hoping that we will think about contributions that we can make in relation to all types of crime, whether it's corporate crime, crime with governments, individual crime, personal crimes, domestics, you name it. We want to hear your contributions in relation to all. So we will just give a short countdown, maybe about 2 minutes, because we don't want to stay up here, so that you can share with us your contributions. I see that online we have someone all the way from London already. Thank you for being awake. I know it has to be very close to midnight. And I'm grateful that you've taken the time to be here. we're seeing your comments in relation to the audio, and we're also looking to fix that what's new.
Yeah. Get started.
Good evening, everyone. I am Berla Pisa. I am the chair of the Democratic Labour Party's Commission on Crime. With me this evening, I have one of the appointees on that commission, Shaquani Hunt. She is our youth representative, and she is well qualified to represent the youth. And I'm not just speaking about the fact that she is a young person, but she is our newly minted president of the Young Democrats. She is, at her young age, one of the vice presidents of the Democratic Labour Party. She sits on national councils, and very recently she was selected for a regional conference on young women in politics. So she wears, I'm sure I didn't mention all of the hats.
No, but you
But
did so.
You will understand then that she is here representing young people, something that she does almost like thinking and breathing. It just comes naturally to her. This evening, we want to discuss how crime affects young people. And Shaquani, as one of our commissioners, she has been interviewing young people and interacting with them in relation to crime, and not just youth involvement in crime, which a lot of people talk about, but also the impact of crime on young people. Now, very recently, there have been news items of young people involved in crime in different ways. We had two school-age children who were injured in incidents. We have had very young persons who have been charged by the police with respect to crime. We've had 3 incidents in our very short school year so far.
Three incidents that we know of.
That we know of, because I'm hearing rumors of others, but we can't speak to those with any certainty. So one thing we're certain of is that the crime in the country is impacting on our young people. Certainly whenever there is an incident of any type, whether it be property crime or whether it is personal crime in terms of assault of that nature, not only the victim is impacted, but their families as well. So again, we will have a knock-on effect on our young people. Also, from interacting with them, Shaquani, you're not just getting their stories and their anecdotes, but they're full of solutions as well.
Definitely.
So if for a moment you can speak to us about what your findings are so far as you are conducting your studies on behalf of the commission.
Definitely, sure. What I found in speaking to the young people, most of them aren't involved in crime and they don't want to be associated with crime. But because they are young and they may not have jobs, they are technically in the bracket of people who may find themselves in crime or to be in that category. But in speaking to them, a lot of them changed up their natural habits. So if they would normally go out and line through the next gap or go to a bar or go by a friend's house, they recognized that with the recent gun violence, it was better not to line in those areas, and they resorted to lining at home. I found that that particular grouping, if it was around 15 of them had now gone back to just liming through the gap. I actually saw them building benches and tables to play dominoes on. Because I went asked why they decided to link home instead of out, they said that there's so many killings and shootings on the road. They didn't want to be involved or associated with that, so they preferred just to go home. And home felt safe. So when you think about that, they made a choice not to be involved. And even though people say a lot of young people fall victim to peer pressure, I found that they still had the ability to think for themselves. And amongst the group, they decided, man, it's better we stay home. We can probably ask somebody for assistance, because that is what they did. They asked if anybody could get them a pack of dominoes. They asked for paint to paint the benches and the dominoes table. So they tried to make the situation more comfortable to be living at home. I also found that some of the issues that they had encountered that they thought affected young people was that they had a lot of difficulty getting jobs. When a young person leaves school at 16 and they don't have qualifications, it is like navigating a very treacherous route of how to get employed, because most jobs require you to have some form of certificate or something that says, well, you can read, you can do basic math, you can function in society. But because technically they don't leave with anything if they don't complete CXCs or CBQs, they don't have any qualifications to say that they're capable of participating in society, besides word of mouth or just filling out a form. So people are then taking a chance on them. And even that, sometimes I find that they're having difficulty. I encounter a lot of 16-year-olds who had difficulty getting jobs because even though they may have had the NS cards, they could not get TAMIS numbers. And that kind of like turned them away from even trying to apply again, because they felt very frustrated in going through the whole process, then to be told there's no system for them at this time. What I then found out, which I also shared that information with them, is that they can get the TAMIS number now if they go to the constituency office in St. John for the Minister of Youth, which is also difficult because remember, they don't have jobs, they don't work, they don't have money to get to St. John. So it's like, imagine you want to buy something, but at every turn you're being turned around. And sometimes people give up. What I can say for some of them, they turn to entrepreneurship where they decided, man, I'm going to ask my family for assistance, and maybe this assistance I can help myself. With that, they did fall into difficulty as well, because one of the young gentlemen he decided to become a vendor, and he just started with water. He went out one day and then he didn't go anymore. So I asked, why you didn't go anymore? And his answer was, the street's hot, people getting shot. I don't want to be shot, so I prefer to be home and poor than be out on the road and get shoot for money that I currently don't have, and I might not even make that much. So to think that even working for yourself as a vendor, they were considering that it is dangerous. I cannot imagine if that is just one young person, how every other young person is feeling currently in this society where you're pressured to work and make money, but also it's dangerous to work and make money.
No, you touched on a flashpoint there, and that is that the education system seems not to be servicing our young people. And certainly in our research that we've been doing so far and the responses that we're getting back from our interviews, we're finding that that is a commonplace complaint by young people. In your interaction with young people, were you getting any sense that they were thinking of ways that could assist them in getting ahead in society without having to resort to crime?
Yes, a lot of them wanted to do training opportunities, but again, they had difficulty applying for these training opportunities. I know of a young gentleman who was enrolled in one of the what do you call that, BBTV. That was skills training, but now known as BBTV. And for almost half of the year, he was attending classes, and every morning he got to school at 8 a.m. He was sent back home because he had no tutor. The tutor was on sick leave. So every day he went out there and he got frustrated and he asked for assistance in finding out what was going on with the program. So I called to find out what was going on with the program. I called the office. They didn't even know that he didn't have a tutor, even though the tutor was on sick leave. So what they did, they had to extend the program instead of a 1 year program to 2 years so he can just get the education he was supposed to get in the first year in the second year. So it was frustrating. So imagine you're trying to help yourselves, and at every turn you're being set back because the child said he was bored. He was bored. You imagine a person was bored because they wanted to go to school and learn, get further education, but every time they showed up to the school, nothing was happening. They were turned away and told to go back home because they had nobody to teach the course. I feel like something like that should not have been allowed to happen because they should have a plan to hire a substitute teacher if the teacher was going to be on sick leave for such a long period of time. Or just be courteous to those students and send an email saying, well, your tutor will be out of school for this time period. So your main classes, you don't have to come to school. But English, maths, and those other courses, you would have to come for those lessons because why would they need to wait to show up to the facility to find out that there's no classes?
All right. Okay, so we're finding that we have an issue with education, and we know that there's also an issue in terms of jobs. I want to touch on another hot button topic, and what are your responses like when you ask about family life?
Mm. Well, I will say that is probably the hardest section to navigate because when you find children acting out or young people acting out, home life is very difficult. I always say children don't act out for no reason because they don't. Just think about you as an adult. You wouldn't cry or you wouldn't shout for no reason. So it is the same for them. But it's difficult for them to navigate those feelings because we are not taught as young people how to address our feelings in terms of those situations. A lot of these young people either don't have family support. The family itself is struggling, so they don't have stuff like water or electricity in the household. So even though this is the modern age, a lot of people do not have water or electricity because when you miss 1 or 2 payments and you get turned off, sometimes to get reconnected is a longer process, especially if it is off for a long period, and you may need to get a whole overhaul inside the household. And that is difficult. Most households in Barbados also have our extended households. So sometimes you may be sharing a bedroom with 4 to 5 people, so there's no privacy. So you find that young people gravitate to being outside because that is their space, their alone time. So imagine you had a hard day at school, you came home, and you're now sharing a bedroom with 5 other people, maybe mixed gender because it's not necessarily a bedroom only for males or only for females. Or it might only be 2 bedrooms. So how do you have your own privacy or your own peaceful environment to do homework, study, or even reflect on your day when you have to be in a situation like that? I know everybody can't get out of it, but that is something that is hard for them. I remember being younger and being told that you're young, you don't have anything to worry about. And that in itself, it is. I don't think people understand that even though you're young, you still worry about things. Being young does not make you forget about the struggles in life, or it doesn't make you forget about the struggles in home life, because if life at home is hard, at school is going to be hard as well.
Okay, now you ended there on a topic that we try very hard as a society not to speak to, and that is how the pressures of society affect young people. In the last few years, we've had a number of suicides. We've had a governmental response to it in terms of a hotline to call. Um, but we don't have the same level of, I'll call it respect for mental health issues as we have for, say, our physical health. In terms of our young people, because they tend to be the demographic that is more acutely represented when we hear of suicides. Um, were they able to articulate the pressures that they are feeling, both from society and also from within themselves?
Yes. Most young people can articulate what is wrong with them. The issue comes is when they tell an adult and then you're told nothing is wrong with you. You're fine. Black people don't do counseling. That's not us. When you think about our culture as Barbadians, we don't really suggest that people should get counseling. It's always shunned upon. And then when you hear people getting treatment at the psychiatric hospital, they're referred to as mental. So you automatically think that only mad people get treatment there. So the stigma attached to it is very, very negative. If you've ever been to the facility to help somebody go through assessment, you would know that that is not what it's about. You see regular people there, people come in their work clothes, they go and get assessed, they go and get the treatment. There's also units inside that facility for counseling for children who are having difficulty at school, who have anger issues. So there's not only mad people as the public would associate them as there. They have solutions and facilities and programs to assist the public. So I think we first need to strip away the stigma on it and probably do a rebranding of the whole facility and its name, because the stigma is attached to what it is called. We need to do a open day basically where people can come in and see how treatment sessions will work, the facility is like, because people associate it with people only come there when they're having mental breakdowns or when they're permanent residents. So they probably need to do a session or be more public about how people can get help there, what are the opportunities, and even invite the schools and principals to engage with them at that level.
Okay. So we've talked about some of the social issues that are affecting young people. I want to just spend a moment to speak about one of the interviews that I conducted with a young man who very openly said that his involvement in crime was about the pressure that he feels to support his family. No. Young men, in particular, as fathers, have been stepping up more in recent times than they used to before. You're seeing more young men rearing their children. They have them on their hips, they're taking them to school, they're taking them to social events, and it is a welcome change. What would you suggest, given the information that you've been gathering, that can assist young parents, especially young fathers, to be able to meet those pressures head on, so that they will feel confident that they can be good role models and also be good providers within their households?
The first thing I would suggest is that there are parenting classes. Sometimes it may be hard to find, but Paradox usually runs some. I've seen some other private entities running programs as well, and there are other organizations that just help men. So you can go and talk about your issues, and other people can give you advice on how they will navigate those situations. Because one of the things that they need to recognize, it is okay to ask for help. Nobody's going to judge you, but you need to indicate that you need assistance so that somebody can know how to guide you. I encountered a young gentleman who was a father, and I remember somebody mentioned to me, I don't think the two young parents were mixing this baby formula correctly, because they saw them mixing it and they thought that they weren't doing something right. So I said, you know what, I'll go and speak to them. I read the instructions because obviously I don't know anything about mixing any baby formula. But I read the instructions and then I asked them, how do you mix it? And then they told me, they said somebody showed them and they told them that they put in 2 scoops. I said, okay, that is fine. But it also has an age range. So because you start at 2 scoops, that doesn't mean you stay at 2 scoops. But they didn't know. They said because the person explained it to them like that, they just thought that it was you stay at the 2 scoops forever. So I explained to them that there are particular stages for age ranges, and that as the baby grows, you need to look at the back of the instructions, and it will tell you how much formula you would need to add to this water.
Right.
So I said, didn't you realize that the baby was drinking more than usual, like other baby? They said, yeah, they were making probably like 12 to 15 bottles a day when you wouldn't have to if it was heavier. So one of the things that I recognize is something, don't wait for them to always ask. If you can see something, you can assist, intervene. Just do it in a polite manner because, and separate them from the crowd because they don't want to be embarrassed.
I'm seeing some questions online. One is, what is happening with the youth 0 to 16 years old and how do they fit into this conversation? How is the crime and violence impacting on this age category and how do we reduce the risk and exposure for these minors? This is a difficult one. What we've found in our so far in our research is that reaching out to minors is difficult, if not impossible. We have barriers that are set up. We can only talk to minors if their parents allow. That is the first limitation. The second limitation is that we don't have direct access to schools. For instance, schools were invited to participate in this event, but maybe it is too public an event for the schools to have any control over participation out of school hours. So it is more difficult to get that information, but it is a very valid consideration because what we're speaking about here in terms of young adults tend to be parents. So in our movements and speaking to young adults, we're getting information that must be impacting on that age range that concerns you, which is the 0 to 16 years old. But because we don't have the access to them to be able to get the direct information from them, it is going to be anecdotal only, unfortunately. If you do have a suggestion as to how we could breach that barrier, then we are happy to accept the suggestion and to move forward. There's another query asking if there are other young people on the commission who can contribute to the conversation. Absolutely, there are other young people on the commission. Shaquani is representing on the commission in that segment, but we have 2 others. One who is a social worker. She's a young social worker, Kelly, and we have a young attorney, Simon, who is reporting from the court perspective, and he will have a component dealing with juvenile justice as well. This evening, though, we have Shaquani reporting because on the commission, that was the responsibility that was assigned to her. So no, Shaquani is not the only young person on the commission, and as you can see from my head, it is not me at all. Yes. Yeah. Please feel free to keep your contributions coming. We're getting more of those from over on YouTube, and that's quite fine. I will say that today was a test for us of our new Instagram site. We will continue to do that so that we can drive some traffic over to our Instagram page, but we are happy to interact with you via YouTube as well. Keep your comments. Yes, I recognize you were discussing this evening, but I took the opportunity to broaden the discussion to explain who else was on the commission that is young. But this evening, it is Shaquani who is representing the young people. Feel free to throw your questions at us. We're quite fine. In case I missed a few, let me check. We're getting comments as well, and that is quite fine, because the reason we're doing this outreach is because we're certain that we don't have all of the answers. We're certain that even with the questionnaires and the interviews that we are doing, that we're also not going to reach everyone. And we're also taking written contributions. So if you are not willing to speak up in a public forum, but you have contributions that you wish to make, we've been getting quite a few of those, and they've been very, very useful. I'm seeing a comment, again, lack of work and poor examples from adults at home. Shaquani, let's deal with the role models, not just at home, but within society as a whole. What have your findings been as you move around and have the interviews with young people?
What I found was that community don't raise children anymore. So the communities have stepped back from being involved with raising children. And I think that impacted a lot of young people in this generation, because I remember when I was young, if somebody outside told you something, that was the standard. You didn't have to call your mother, you didn't have to text your mother. That was what it was. And if you did anything different from that, when you get home, you will be in trouble.
I'm so amused to hear you say when I was young. I thought
When
that
I was younger, when I was younger, because when you think about it, no, a parent might now say, "Don't hit my child, don't tell my child anything," and that turned people off from intervening. Because when you think about, okay, you're correcting somebody's child, and then somebody might say, "Oh, if you touch my child, I might beat you." So you now have no step back, and if you see them doing something wrong, you're not going to tell the parent anymore. You're just going to mind your business. People, as the public will say, "I'm going to mind my business and drink my tea." So they're trying not to get involved in it, even though they've seen them go astray. They're stepping back because they're afraid of what the parents might do to them if they say anything. Because everybody believes that their child is an angel.
No, I can use this expression and have it be meaningful. And that is, back in the day, church also played a significant role in molding the minds of young people. What is the attitude of young people from your reporting?
What I found out is that church is not enforced. It doesn't matter the religion, it's not enforced as much as it was when I was also a little bit younger. We had to go to church Saturday, Sunday, Thursday, almost Tuesday. They had an activity at the church every single day. There was youth night, there was dancing, there was Bible school, there was Bible study, there was steel pan. I remember being at church some days from 7 a.m. to 2 in the afternoon, and you were exhausted by the time you got home. There was no time to give trouble because you were tired. The only thing you could do was prep for school, do homework, and get ready for bed. So I find that now, when parents give children the option to decide if they want to go, that option give them opportunity to do something else. Because even if my mother didn't go to church, I went to church with the gap. It wasn't only me, and it was at that time it was at least 15 of us holding each other hands in pairs of two, walking up the hill to abundant life. So you can imagine the gap children went to church. So because we don't have that kind of community connection anymore, you'll find maybe one or two may go to church, maybe one person may go in the vehicle, but no, it's not enforced that one child doing something, all must go and do it as well. You find that disconnect. I have a question from online on Instagram. A person is asking, what is your take on the relevance of Black life in Barbados?
Okay. I will say that my portion of the interviews has been the outreach on the blocks. And I picked that one for myself because I feel an affinity, not that I have been a part of the block, but in my professional life as a criminal defense attorney, I interact with them on a regular, and they reach a level of comfort with me that they can discuss their issues that are underlying. It ties in with the research that you've been finding, and that is that the outside space becomes a family and a home. We've adopted the term block. It is almost a part of our vernacular now that when we speak about blocks, and we know that there are certain areas in Barbados that have garnered to themselves bad reputations. What they're saying though, and I'll give their perspective and then I'll give mine. What they're saying though is that there really is nowhere else for them to be. The home life, as you quite rightly pointed out, may not be the best. There is overcrowding in the homes. I've been to government units that had 18 people living in them. This is not even exceptional. And they gravitate to outside because there's somewhere else to be. There is one study done on Barbados which reported family members sleeping in shifts because there's so many in the house and only so many beds. And again, they gravitate to outside. Believe it or not, the block has quite a similar structure, as in there's the head of the household. There, others who follow instructions, and so there is a feeling of oneness and family life on the block. If it can be harnessed for good, that is great. But like most other things, like the atomic bomb, you can either drop it on Hiroshima or you can use it to split the atom for medical good. So similarly, groups of young persons gathering in a particular place can be harnessed for good. And perhaps as a society, we need to be the ones reaching out to them because they're already feeling a disconnect. So we need to be the ones reaching out to them to see how we can bring them back.
Somebody
in.
answered follow-up questions to that. What about the role of community clubs?
And this is the thing, because if we can find somewhere else for them to be besides on the block, then I'm pretty certain that they will go, so long as there are activities that are attractive to them. So it can't be that those of us who are sitting in the boardroom come up with the solutions, put them out there, and then grumble when they're not attractive. We need to first speak with them to find out what it is that they're interested in doing, and then finding ways to facilitate. One of those has always been community centers. I am confused and flabbergasted as I move around the country and I find them under lock and key. Exactly, they're under lock and key.
Very, very confusing.
And it really is a disservice to communities when they're not allowed to be open. And I put it that way because somebody has a key. So I put it as in they're not allowed to be open.
I remember when I worked with the Bashaw Community Center, and many days people would go to the constituency office to get stuff printed, and that would be closed, and they would be sent to come to the community center. They would want to print things like CVs, they would want to use the computer to fill out application forms, and just having the doors open meant something to them, because that means that if they wanted assistance, they could come to the community center and get help, because they saw it as a beacon of light, some place that they can turn to when anybody else would turn them away.
It is also a place where skills can be learned. For a lot of young people, they have untapped talents that can be used to monetize their families. We had a cute expression a few years ago called cottage industries. And we also have a lot of very, I was going to say crafty, but that has a different meaning. Very useful with their hands are some of our young people. And they don't have space in which they can express themselves. So our artists or artisans, those who, I know there's a young lady who makes fantastic soft toys through knitting and crochet, but needing a space outside of the home where they can be on a day to have that training would be wonderful.
I'm glad that you mentioned that because I remember a time where Pelican Village was a space that young artisans or artisans in a whole could rent and use the space because one, the rent was affordable. Because I remember previously when we went to investigate because we knew somebody who wanted a space, the rent for those areas were around $500. And when you look in where SBA used to be at that entrance, a lot of woodwork, leatherwork, glass blowing used to happen in those buildings. But I don't know what will be happening to those people now that Pelican is rebranding and doing the Pelican Lifestyle Center. Where's the new location that people who want to express an interest in something like this can go to rent for a small fee or even go for free?
And there's another component because one of the solutions that we're looking at is apprenticeships. And if you have a skill and you can share it with another young person, then that is a way of assisting for them to have a way to raise themselves. I saw another question. They're moving up pretty quickly, the contributions, but I saw at least two of them which were related to the prisons. That one is more in line with the section that I have been dealing with and that Simon has been dealing with, but he is not here. And that is that our criminal justice system as it is presently constructed speaks well in statute about rehabilitation, but in reality, it is not practiced well. There's prison ministries, there are skills being learned in the prison. For those who are on remand, it is optional. For those who are under sentence, it is not optional, but it is not treated as a rehabilitation exercise, although it does have that knock-on effect. And I think if we were more purposeful about rehabilitation in prison and at the same time being purposeful about reintegration into society, because it doesn't stop. The responsibility is not just on the prisoner to fix himself, but there's also a mandate on society to fix the stigma that is attached, just like you spoke of with mental health.
You mentioned stigma because think about when you come out of prison, you're
Exactly.
required, when you go to get a job, you have to get a police certificate of character. So now you have done your time, you're asking for society to give you opportunity. You know how that falling on your head. At any point in time, does that get ever removed off of your certificate of character?
As it stays right now, it does get removed if you make an application. I would have to say that the majority don't know that that even exists.
That was the first thing for me hearing that. So
Yes.
maybe the public does not even know that.
But there should know that police certificates of character are online. There should be some automatic system falling in line with the legislation, 5 years for minor matters and 10 years for more serious matters, that they automatically fall off of their register. I mean, we would not want them to be disregarded entirely because sometimes they're relevant. But in the production of a police certificate of character, if aged convictions are no longer reflected, we may stand a better chance of on paper in any event, giving our reformed, they've already paid their debt to society, an opportunity to become productive members of society. So we really do need to be paying attention to the prison services in a way that we have not done before. I'm seeing this is going backwards, but I'm seeing a comment in relation to Sunday school being a thing of the past and FETs replacing weekend activities. And also, and this is just reporting comments, also that there are a lot of service industries, for instance, the Optimist Club, the Scouts, Brownies, and things of that nature that young people can get involved in. Perhaps if we have them in a more structured way, at least for a time, as we're rehabilitating society.
And
Yes.
see all of them at once, so you know how you can get in touch with them. Instead of individual frameworks, maybe they all can be listed on the Ministry of Youth, or they can create a database where you can go and say, well, I want to find out information on this. You have all the clubs listed here publicly, so people know how to sign up, where to sign up, and so that they can pick and choose what they want to sign up for.
Yes, that would definitely help. We see that at the schools when there's a new cohort of students coming in, all of the clubs will be on display. But we need to do more, especially if we view the addressing of the crime situation and the causes of crime more so, because that clearly is the focus that we need to have. If we view that as a national project where everyone is on board with practical solutions, not just with talk. I think we maybe well past that, and now we need to be identifying the practical solutions. Then we would be in better stead. I'm seeing another question here. What factors influence recidivism in Barbados? Is lack of family support the main factor, or lack of housing? Now, our own study has not been focusing on recidivism, but a fellow criminologist has done extensive study on recidivism. And the finding is that these very same factors that we're speaking about here today, the housing situation, the education situation, the lack of opportunities, the employment, unemployment, and also underemployment of young people, the hopelessness, all of these, and then the stigma, once you've run afoul of the law, being able to move back into society. We're finding from that study, because we haven't conducted our own on recidivism, from that study, we're finding that they definitely are factors that we need to be addressing as a nation if we are to redirect those who have already collided with the criminal justice system into a different way. There's a suggestion here that we need to have more activities catering to students during school breaks and vacations. This really is one thing that the Democratic Labour Party got right. In the last administration, the summer camps that were dispersed across the country made it possible for parents to go to work and know that their children were well cared for at least
You're
for a
missing a
particular
very
period.
important word there. Free summer camps, because a lot of the reasons why people don't send their children to camps or activities because they have a child. There is a cost attached to it, and they can't afford the additional cost. So because these camps are free, it gives them the ability to send them to a place where they can.
I want to add another layer: free with meals provided. Which really addresses the second part of the question, which is how wide is the reach to get a higher percentage of students involved. It was a national program. Every parish was touched. Not every school complex was used, but the school network was the basis for it.
They also use community centers and churches to host some of the programs.
That's
and
correct.
The locations adjusted based on what they were offering.
Yes, there were some camps that were directed towards sports. There were some that were directed towards the arts. Some were more mainstream that you would expect, like with Vacation Bible School, and they were modeled on what was one of the best summer camps every summer held in Houghton, and the Trent Summer Day Camp. That was really the model for the National Summer Camp program. I think one of the reports that came out of that was that there were less drownings involved in the vacation because children were accounted for somewhere else. And perhaps if we can get back to having the summer camps, there were some on a smaller scale this summer, but there were actually several layers of success with these summer camps. It was not just about housing and training young Barbadians, but the teens and young adults
We're getting an opportunity,
get an opportunity as
to get
counselors.
jobs.
That's correct.
So
They
would
improve their
enroll,
CVs.
and then they can also get rid as well.
That's correct.
As work experience, and that is very, very important. in this
Small
time.
caterers were used to provide the meals at the camp. So there were provided free to the students, free to the parents, but there were components of that allowed for circulation in the economy, and that too is absolutely necessary. We need to have that brought back again.
So the question was there, but then I'm not seeing it.
How can the PTA community at kindergarten and primary level be used as a means of problem solving before children become teens? I believe that means.
The first problem with PTAs is that the time PTAs are held, people are now coming home from work, they're now looking at the children. I think those meetings need to be held either later or maybe on a day that they don't have to rush from one activity to the next.
I have another suggestion. COVID taught us a lot. We seem not to want to learn the lessons of COVID, but COVID taught us a lot. And an online PTA meeting will have several more parents than an in-person PTA meeting will have. I think that any meeting will have more people online than they will have in person. The numbers online here, we would not get in studio. So yes, we would have to be in the auditorium in order to accommodate the numbers online, and then of course people come and watch afterwards, and the viewing
And
goes
that is
up.
probably something they should do as well. I don't know if primary schools have a website where they can post recordings or send you recordings to parents privately, so they have opportunities to either rewatch the session and maybe submit written input. Because some parents may work night, so they're not able to go to the meeting while it's happening live, but if they wanted to, they should be able to access a link or something like that to rewatch it later.
Yes. The questions are coming thick and fast now. Do you agree that some of the factors that presupposes people to crime are genetics, social issues, and mental illness? We dealt with two of these before. I don't know about the genetic point.
Let me see. The Ministry of Youth had this End the Violence campaign, and they had social workers, counselors on the program, and that is one of the areas that they spoke on. I was also one of the guest speakers there. And what I found is that it cannot solely be genetics, because some people grow up in the same exact household, they're exposed to the same exact things, but they decided one brother may choose to live a life of crime and the other might decide to be a lawyer.
I want to frame it a little differently and refer again to the last Democratic Labour Party administration. In its welfare program, it had a component called AC Bridge, and that's I-SW Bridge. And the intention of it was to counteract generational poverty. And something we've spoken about it without calling its name this evening, and that is poverty and how it impacts on the decisions that people make to step outside of society. But the Icy Bridge program was designed to give that leg up to get families out of poverty and break that cycle. So if you find that you're in a cycle of poverty, this is it. This is what you know. This is what your grandmother knew. This is what your parents knew. This is what your children are coming up in. You are more likely to find those antisocial solutions that your parents and grandparents also employed in order to just simply get by. This is not an excuse for it. This is just a reality. But then when we're speaking about genetics and we're framing it in that way, it doesn't answer a type of criminality that we haven't dealt with at all so far for this evening, and that is the corporate crime, where there are not those excuses, but there are also infractions that are being committed. They tend to fly under the radar a little bit more. They tend to be what in inverted commas called victimless crimes, but obviously it's an impact on the economy. It is prescribed by law in any event, and it does also have an impact on society. It may not be as visible. So I personally do not know about genetics issue. Maybe another study can deal with that with persons more competent to
In
deal
that
with
area.
the biological and physiological effects. Don't think y'all answered in relation to exposure to destructive music in society. Would one be a dictator to block certain internet access and banning bad music on radio regardless to a clean version?
What I will say is that how do we know exactly that this music is the cause of the problem? Because you may listen to that music, I may listen to that music, I may hear something else. So maybe we need to monitor and watch how the child reacts after they listen to this music and see if you as a parent need to intervene to say, I need to cut my child off from this type of music or this type of movie or this type of internet, because a lot of young people have social media handles. So maybe you now need to put on your parental controls on their phones and devices to help intervene in that element.
Well, that's why I gave my little nervous laugh at the beginning, because I was wondering how you would begin to be the dictator that this person is not recommending, but asking us to consider. How would you go about doing it in an age where literally the World Wide Web is in your house? It's in your hand. It is in front of us right now. How would we?
Because even if the government was to find a way to block it, people can purchase VPNs to then still watch it on their own. So that would still present a challenge.
I want to use the example of China, which has not, despite their political regime, been successful in excluding. Matter of fact, they have contributed to worldwide spread through TikTok, which started in China. Of course, the best case scenario is that you can only expose young people to good. That is best case scenario. Is it reality? It is not. I don't think that we would get very far, and we would certainly get pushed back. I do recall, though, that there was a time when we did not have the lyrics, the lewd lyrics on the radio. I'm hearing them more now.
Before they used to be blocked out, or they used to produce a clean version for radio play.
Correct, which is what the person recommended.
Yes, that is something that we can probably, the government can probably enforce or ask the radio stations. Or probably ask the radio stations to remember that this is something that they need to enforce as well, because it is important that we control what kind of language is being played on the radio station, because a person in the Zedder cannot choose what they're listening to. So a child on the Zedder cannot choose what they're listening to because they don't pick the radio stations.
We have some comments, and someone said the camps were completely incident free. The lunches were prepared by caterers, and the meals were just as good as Brown Sugar restaurant. I love that. Brown Sugar holds a special place in the heart of Barbadians who wanted to eat out but still wanted to eat like Bajans. So I understand that. Someone else says studies with twins debunk assumptions. I believe that would be about genetics. The majority of what we deal with is environmental. Someone else is commenting that this year, and I'm going to paraphrase because it is kind of long, this year some of the students were asked to pay for tours and parents couldn't afford it, so the children would stay home on those days. And they're suggesting that government buses could have been used instead of coaches.
I think the problem the government is running into is that they have a lack of buses already on the road, but what the government could have done was cover the cost of the coaches. The same way they would pay the buses, pay the coaches.
Yes.
Because if you're sending your child to a free camp, is the assumption that this person they cannot afford to pay to send their child to a paid camp. Where are they going to get the money for this?
I'm absolutely loving this next question. In what ways can the youth themselves be involved in designing and implementing crime prevention initiatives? This is exactly why we were inviting the schools to come, because we old fogies and the younger fogies and those of us who have studied things will be stunned by the gems that fall from the mouths of young people, because they observe and assimilate in ways that we cannot imagine. They also are more immersed in what is going on currently, and they have a voice that needs to be heard. We're going to find a way to tap into it. We're going to get, whatever the way is, we're going to try and find a way to tap into it, because it is information that we absolutely need to have, even if we have to bring out a separate report on young people, and so that their suggestions, because I expect that they will be very, very valid. This evening's program is intended to be short because we are targeting young people, and we thank those young persons who came on and who contributed this evening, because we need to have the information. Your comments, we couldn't get to speak to all of them. We picked out the questions that were the standouts amongst them and the comments that were standouts amongst them. But definitely this is a nationwide exercise, one that we acknowledge from the outset could not be achieved only in a boardroom. There must be the outreach. We're supposed to have one more town hall meeting, but we may need to stretch them because we've been getting feedback. For instance, we've been having the town hall meetings, and someone said, in all that you've been doing, there's not been any discussion yet on domestic violence. And it is a big issue that we need to be concentrating on. So whilst this one was concentrating on the youth, then we wanted to have we have had a different focus at each town hall meeting. And the suggestions that we keep getting mean that we probably need to have a few more than we had planned. We don't want to run over the deadline that was given to us by the Leader of the Opposition for the submission of the report. But perhaps what we could do is keep an ongoing study after the submission of the report to refresh the information on a regular basis. The contributions have been fantastic this evening. I want to thank all of you who contributed. I'm noting again that there is interest in hearing from minors, and we're going to have to find a way to tap into that resource. I'm seeing someone else with that comment about how we deal with them, especially as it relates to their trauma from their experiences towards crime. I want to thank all of you for taking the time out this evening to join with us in this live. We have taken note not just of the ones that we highlighted, but all of your contributions. We will be indicating where we are next in terms of our town hall meeting. Look out for the flyer, and if necessary, probably is necessary, we will hold some extra sessions. They may be online, and we welcome you to join us at that time as well. Thank you so very much for your attention this evening.